so I love languages. I actually have this joke where I say, I love to talk so much that I learn extra languages so I can talk to more people. And actually, that's not that far from the truth when I think about it. So this video is all about how you learn languages. So the first time I started learning a language, I was in high school. But actually, my interest in language goes back to when I was a young girl, probably around 4, 5, 6 years old. And my babysitter, Liz, was a Spanish speaker. And I heard her always speaking Spanish to her boyfriend, Pepe. And I was always curious about what they were saying. And I lived actually in this neighborhood that was all Mexican and then just me. No white, no black, just me, and all the rest of the neighborhood was Mexican. So that's where my first interest came from because everything around me was that. The second interest came when, I don't know if you know Selena, Beady Beady Bum Bum. I loved her music and I always wanted to know what she was saying. I would sing the lyrics, probably saying them really, really wrong, but totally obsessed. So when I got in high school and it came time to start learning, now I had the resources, now I had the tools to start learning, and I was really, really interested in doing so. And this is really important, this whole story, because it absolutely contributes to why people learn and why other people don't. I had a genuine interest in learning, and I had a reason and a cause and a mission since I was very, very young. So when I started learning, it wasn't so much about the books. It wasn't about the tests. It wasn't about that. For me, it was this lifelong dream of being able to communicate with people that were around me. I was curious about what they were talking about. I was curious about what was normal for them. And the thing about learning language is you have to actually be interested in the culture, and you have to be actually interested in the people, and whatever the thing is, whatever the reason that you're learning the language, you have to really be genuinely curious about whatever that language is going to bring you in order to learn, because otherwise you're just learning words and phrases, and it takes a lot of work to learn a language. And if you're not genuinely invested, then you're just not going to be able to reach a level that is meaningful enough for you to be able to carry on. So rule number 1 is have a genuine interest in learning that language. Rule number 2, I mentioned that I really love Selena, Beady Beady Bum Bum. I listened to her whole album. Gloria Estefan, oof, I die for her. But anyway, I love those two artists so much, and I love listening to their songs. And so when it was time to start learning Spanish in high school, I remember one of the things I would use to practice language would be listening to their songs, finding their lyrics when they used to come out in that little CD. You remember that? But finding the lyrics in the little CD and then like singing along with them. And then I would find words that I know in those lyrics. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I know that. And I would put it all together and I would sing the song. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know something. And so the tip number 2 is find fun ways to learn the language. Because when you're singing a song, or for example, if you're watching a telenovela, which I used to always do too with my friends, but if you're finding fun ways to learn, it's not actually learning, right? It's like when you're super talented at something, usually you're talented because you're doing a lot of work to practice, but you don't call it practice and you don't call it work because you love to do it. Nevertheless, it's work for the person who doesn't want to do it. And so my second tip is make sure that you find fun ways to practice the language. And so, for example, when I started learning French, when I started learning German, I used the same method. Learning songs, finding music that I really like, and then delving into those things. Rule number 3, or tip number 3 that I have for you is you have to get over the embarrassment of speaking the language and talking to people. There is zero chance that you're going to speak any language with any level of fluency if you allow yourself to be embarrassed by actually speaking out, because language is not one way, it's two-way thing, right? You communicate. And in order to learn really well, you have to be willing to put yourself out there, communicate, reciprocate, and have this exchange that actually language is used for. So don't be embarrassed. if you notice, here's one thing that helped me get over my embarrassment. If you look at people who speak your own native language, who may not be formally educated, who might not care that much about language, you will notice that people who are speaking your own native language don't speak perfectly. Like, have you ever noticed that? Because when I started noticing that about English, I'm like, I don't even know what this person is saying. This is their native language. Plenty of people make mistakes in their native language, so don't be afraid to make a mistake in your second or third language. I mean, it's your second or third language. And then one of the fourth ones that I had, what was the fourth one I was going to have? Oh, really good one. The fourth tip I have for learning a language is go ahead and use material for children as a learning tool. So when I started learning German, I actually learned German in a much more natural way than I learned Spanish. I learned by listening. I learned by watching TV. I learned by just speaking really, really horrible German to people until I got it right. I learned by reading, of course. But one of the things that really, really helped me was finding material that I already understood from the picture or from the context, things that I didn't really need to think too hard about in terms of that foreign language. And then I would use those things to learn. So for example, I used to watch this cartoon called Frederick and oh my gosh, I can't remember the name exactly, but it's Frederick or whatever. Okay. And so I was saying, it was this cartoon called Piggledy and Frederick, or Piggledy und Frederick. And it's this cute little cartoon where Piggledy would ask his older brother, what is the sea? What is warm? What is fast? You know, and he would ask his brother these super simplistic questions. And his brother would say, Nix leichter als das. And so it's like nothing easier than that. And so he would go on explaining in this very simple, very slow, very patient way what the ocean is, for example. And Piggledy would ask silly questions like, but what is a wave? Because of course he would include that, and he would ask these little simple questions, but it's something easy for you to follow along with. And I don't know how I got the idea to start doing that, because I never got that idea from a teacher. But I thought, okay, if children are learning to speak, then that's a great tool for me to learn how to speak. And I mean, it's super cute. So read children's books, watch children's cartoons, and make it really easy on yourself to learn, because children are doing the same thing. Why not use the same resources that work really well for them? And so those are 4 tips. Maybe I can find a 5th one. What's the 5th one? Top 5. Okay, here's a bonus one from Diego. Watch movies with subtitles. Actually, I know this tip from 2 different people, actually. I don't do it much myself, but I think that it probably really does help. I do it sometimes. I did it for French. Anyway, so when you watch a movie, especially when you watch movies that you already know and can anticipate what the dialogue is going to be, you can watch those movies with subtitles, right? I mean, and maybe like the dubbed voice, or watch a native film and then watch it with subtitles in that language. So for example, if you're watching a Spanish film, don't watch it with English subtitles. Watch the Spanish film with Spanish subtitles. And that's a really great way to learn the language and kind of see how it's written. Bonus tip number 6, even for your native language, the more you read, the more you notice patterns, the more you learn. So definitely read as much as you can. Tip 5, include that with your movie viewing. But hopefully those 5 tips were really great for you and give you a little bit of insight. The reason I love the ability to speak different languages particularly is because I love to travel. I love to know about people. And I personally feel like the more I can learn about people, the more I learn about myself. So I'm really encouraged to study different languages, and being able to talk with people after studying and learning is just the cherry on top. It's a really big bonus for when I'm traveling. And here's a little PS on that one. I started learning Arabic some time ago because one of the biggest bonuses for me being able to speak a different language is that when I watch the news, I can actually pick up an article from Mexico about what's going on with Donald Trump. Or I can pick up, an article in Germany about what's going on with the EU, opposed to just looking at the American news. I can, pick up some literature about France and in French fashion in actually French, and the perspectives you get when you read something in a native language or when you speak to someone in a native language are completely different than when they're translated or interpreted in your native language. One of the most interesting conversations, or some of the most interesting conversations I've had, have been about World War II with German people. And as Americans, we have so many ideas about what people were thinking and how it was, and all of the issues and the mindsets around that time. But I've actually spoken to a few people who were children during that time, and they gave me a whole different perspective on what that must have been like from that side. And that's something that I feel so fortunate and blessed to be able to experience. And now with Arabic, we have so much propaganda and so much dogma about the Eastern culture. I'm just really, really interested to know more from the perspective of people who are there. So let's see how that goes. Wish me good luck. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, pass this on to a person who might be looking to learn another language, and have a ton of fun communicating out there in the world.